So, my name is Andrew, and today we're going to talk about quantified approach to emotions in advertising, talking about emotion economy, what does it mean, and how it can help advertisers. My name is Andrew. I am founder at Emonomy. It's a martech startup uh, aimed to increase efficiency of brand marketing, utilizing consumer attention and emotional response. I am neuroscientist by my education and spent around 9 years studying how the brain works, how our emotions work, and how attention works, how decision making works, and so on. Uh, and Second speaker of today is Manuel. Manuel is a former marketing leader in Mexico and Latin America in Nokia and British Petroleum uh, and UK Trade and Investment. Currently, he is a founder in Practical Strategy, and he is a super nice guy from marketing and from Mexico. I don't know if it's possible to put it together this tonight, but anyway, he is super nice. You will see it by your eyes really soon. And in Emonomy, we analyze consumer emotion attention currently in 15 countries across the globe. We work with largest advertisers like Disney, Unilever, Honda, Bayer, and so on. And the largest agencies work with us, like Dentsu, BBDO, Publicis, Ipsos, and so on. Today, we're gonna talk about attention, emotions, and advertising, about emotion measurement, about connection between emotional response and brand metrics, and what this branch can uh, want from their marketing creatives. Importantly, so this will be like a two sessions. The first one will be made by me, another one will be made by Manuel, and then we'll have a networking part. So as you saw, we're in this bit experimental platform. Instead of just using Zoom or Google Meet today, we're in this Remo platform. It's a new experience for us, and we'll see how it works. So after our session talks and Q&A session, we're gonna have networking part when you will see in the lobby in the tables, and we'll have to talk one with each other, and we'll see whether we'll find it valuable, interesting, or not. So it's experimental for all of us, and thanks for being with us today in this experiment. So let's start. You can see it on the screen right now. So there is some kind of noise right now. And this is exactly how around 80% of all ads are perceived by people. So we live in a super noisy informational environment. Large advertisers generate lots of noise. And in other words, it means that more than 80% of all marketing budgets are wasted just for irrelevant advertising, which is not relevant for people, which not generate any increase in metrics, and everyone suffer here. And the point is that there are a big emerging trend called attention economy in the marketing. And the whole idea is in attention economy is somehow to deal with this super noisy information environment, with this super big inefficiency. And I can't agree more with Soren from Mars that from Ken Lyons to some conferences, everybody talks about attention economy. It's clear that if you can win attention, you then can win customers. And that's why Dentsu put attention economy in one of their top 10 trends in marketing for this year. So it's not surprise at all, because this problem is super huge and super actual for anyone on the market. Uh, so let's go a bit deeper. The point is that, of course, sales outcomes are dependent on a number of things. They dependent on right media planning and creative and brand. And we know that creative accounts for around 47% in the sales uplift. And what is a good creative? Good creative is a creative which can attract attention and evoke emotions, just by definition. Without attention, without emotion, you cannot make a behavioral shift in people. You cannot make them memorize the ads and your brand. So this is just something irrelevant. So if you want to drive ads, basically you have to drive attentions and emotions. They're just equal. Um, they have a linear correlation, and it's quite clear correlation between sales uplift and emotional response. So if you increase somehow emotional response to the video ads times, then you have an increase in sales for like 40%, and it's a massive. So you have to increase emotional response 2 times, you will increase your sales for 40% based on the Nielsen data. It's something really huge and something really big. But the only question is how to do it. Uh, we know that to increase consumer loyalty and to increase brand associations, there are these two parts. As I mentioned, there is this part of video ads, and another part is a media part. So there is a combination of the right video ads in the right media channel. You have to make somehow the video which evokes positive emotions, positive reactions like smiles. You have to make the right reach in the right media channels which capture consumer attention. Then you multiple it, right? You have the right video with the right emotional response in the media which capture consumer attention, and then you're happy. Of course, then you have a uplift in brand associations, so you can affect behavioral shift and so on. So there is a two parts, two super important parts. You have a right content and the right media channels. And if at least one of them do not working, then the whole chain do not work as well. So, an example, if the smile probability for video ads is zero, then the probability of the positive brand associations is also zero, right? You multiple by zero, awesome optimal reach, awesome media channels, and all media budgets, you multiple it by zero if your smile probability is zero, and it do not affect at all uplift and positive brand associations and brand attitudes. So that's why we're talking about cost per emotion. That's super important thing. So you have to think all the time about cost per emotions, not about cost per view, let's say, or cost per melee, or even cost per attention. It's also not working. We have to talk about cost per emotional response of customers during ads in the channels. If probability of emotional response is high, then you have low cost per emotion. It means that with the same media budget, you can make much more people feel something what you want them to feel, and you can make much more people smile toward your ads, which gonna increase number with the positive brand attitudes of your brand and so on. So just you have to keep it in mind that the cost per emotion is a super important thing, and we are here to decrease this cost per emotion. uh, there are a number of methods in neuroscience to measure emotional response. There is approaches like a tracking, like implicit reaction time, functional magnetic resonance imaging, electroencephalography, and facial coding. So this is different approaches both from neuroscience and psychology, cognitive science, and media measurement to somehow evaluate emotional response. However, we use here facial coding just because it's the most scalable way to understand emotional reactions. And of course, some clients, some advertisers think that their ads are perceived like something like super emotional. So there is some celebrity, and people are like, "Oh wow, Ryan Reynolds," or whoever else, and they get happy, or they believe that some drama or some storytelling inside are going to make people laugh and cry and so on. But the truth is that, of course, with majority of people have a poker face when they're looking, and in around 80% of all people are perceived your advertisement with the poker faces. Basically, it doesn't mean it's a normal reaction. It doesn't mean that it's a good reaction. However, this is just something normal and usual for people. Uh, there are five main types of emotional response to advertising. In the vast majority of cases, there is no clear reaction, let's say. So people have a poker face, they're neutral, they have a calmness, and so on. Another usual reaction is a boredom, which can be combined with some sadness and confusion. It's also usual reaction. People are usually do not love watching ads, clearly. And this is a signal that these ads are not relevant for them. Another reaction is happiness, joy, and smiles. When we see that people resonate with these ads, usually it's around with the outstanding ads, it can be around 25-30% with the outstanding ads. It's really hard, of course, to evoke significant emotional response of people. Usually the values are quite low here. And of course, there is a mixture of different emotional reactions, about information consideration and tenderness, and number of more complex emotional responses. Um, Talking about a bit a perspective, a bit funnel in marketing, we can clearly say that out of 100 ad impressions, out of 100 exposures of the ads, around 80% are perceived as informational noise, 70% attract attention, and only 3% are memorized. And uh, we're curious how they're connected with the brand metrics. We know that around 80% do not drive brand metrics at all, just because it's informational noise. People do not see these ads, they do not pay attention to them, or they perceived as something relevant, it only make people bored, or have other irrelevant reactions which are not gonna drive any metrics. So 70% can drive brand awareness. They attract some attention and evoke some emotional response. And only 3% can drive brand awareness and positive brand attitudes. So you see, 3% out of all media budgets increase positive brand attitudes. So it's something really, really, really small. And moreover, this is how the curve of forgetting looks like for the advertisement. You can see here that the percentage of a recall of ads dramatically decreases. Of course, it's clear that in the first 2 hours it goes dramatically down, then it also goes down. But the point is, it's really, really hard to make people memorize the ads and memorize the brand. And you usually, without strong emotional response, you just have to show this advertisement multiple times to repeat the message all the time, to be sure that people are going to memorize it. But it's so ineffective and you waste so much media budgets on it. However, there are examples of good advertisements and approaches to deal with that, when it's possible just to create a good ad, which not with a much more sharper recall function, which gonna be memorized and which do not need 20 exposures to be memorized. For example, here you can see two video ads, video A and video B, and how the percentage of people who recall it, how it changes over the time. And it's possible to predict whether video A or video B going to be the most effective. Clearly, here video A is much more effective, and you'd better count on it in order to increase brand metrics. And so, how it might influence brand metrics. So this is a calculation. It's the hardest part here, but we're gonna deal with that. Let's, based on the data I mentioned before, 5% of viewers remember the ad. We have 5 million people in our target audience. It means that if we will make 5 million impressions, it gonna make 250,000 memorizations of the content. Then we multiple to 250,000 by 5 million, and you see here is a 5% brand awareness. So this is how it's quite straightforward, but this is how we can connect the probability of emotions and recall with the overall brand awareness. And then, of course, we see the correlation between brand awareness metrics and long-term sales uplifts. So based on this data, it's right now possible to see which ads are gonna be the most effective in terms of the brand building, and not just brand building, but long-term brand building based on important data. So the next step forward here. So here's example of calculations. You see here 4 ads: video A, video B, video C, and video D. Here is a number of different probability of recall, like 25%, 15, 16, 10, and so on. Here is a price for 1,000 exposures, 1,000 impressions, if you will. Like for 30 seconds, it's $8. For 15, it's $5. And here is a calculation of the cost per 1,000 recalls. So cost per recalls here is, of course, then is affected dramatically. And here is the estimation of the brand awareness with $10 million media budget. So if you will put $10 million media budget to different ads, you can see how much people are gonna memorize this ad with the same budget. So you can see that the same budget, uh, the number of people who memorize it can be different dramatically. Of course, in the same media channel. And overall, so now it's possible finally to predict impact on brand metrics and better plan campaigns based on attention and emotional data about video ads. Uh, he and in Monomy we're doing such analytics, so help with industry trend to obtain competitive advantage for clients and for agencies and build brand marketing which is truly manageable and attract more attention, emotions, and memorize ads. So I'm done with my part. Happy to ask your questions, few of them, and then we will move to our next part, and Manuel gonna talk. Uh, so let me see if you have questions in the chat. Uh, do we see questions in the chat? Yeah, I see. Hi. Okay. Hi. Looks like we don't have questions in the chat. Let's wait for them for like 20 seconds. If no, anyway, Manuel, the mic is yours, so you can start share your screen. Yeah, I see the question from Kate. Yeah, can you elaborate a bit more about facial coding? Facial coding is an approach to understand emotional reactions based on faces. So in our approach, we analyze consumer emotional response using web cameras, and based on a number of neural networks, we then understand whether people right now feel happiness or they're disgusted or they are bored, or as a process information, or it's just perceived as informational noise and it goes through them and that's it. So facial coding is an approach to understand which facial expressions means which emotions. I guess, Manuel, it's your time.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you all for joining the conference. Here, Andrew is clearly the scientific. I am more the practical guy in some marketing issues. And well, what I am going to talk a little about what you can get with a numeric and metric approach to the emotions. Mm, I will say as an introduction that we have one particular success case where you can see the improvements and you can see how to measure the motion is making an improvement on their advertising. This is one of the main carriers in Mexico. Unfortunately, we cannot share the data, but we can share the learnings, and that is what we are going to do. I'm going to do today to share some of those learnings and to share those basics on that. Please feel free to make questions. I will enjoy if you do some questions about this. Now I will share my screen to show you very brief slides about this experience. example and some of the samples that we have with these big customers for us. And the first thing is that this customer had to learn in the one of the main carriers, as I mentioned, he had to learn what was the importance of emotions. And unfortunately, if you are not making metrics about the emotions, you learn in the hard way. You learn having communication that doesn't become is not relevant. And why are the emotions important? Basically, because of two things. Basically, because they drive the attention of the consumer, and they also drive the memory, and you get memorability when you have emotions. That is basically the key point of emotions. We have thousands of stimulus every single moment. Why to focus our attention in something? Because it's meaningful for us, and the meaningful things are precisely the emotions. And thinking a little about that, I will share with you a video. The video is about a very well-known brand in Mexico. I see some participants from Mexico, and I appreciate your presence here. Probably you will know the brand, and I will stop to sharing my screen a moment. I will share the video, and then I have a question for you. I think you see now the video.
Y te voy a contar qué hacemos para que nada nos detenga. Hazte por lo que quieres. No hay imposibles. Hazlo más y más grande. Busca tu propósito. Que te conozcan en todo el mundo. Para adelante. Demuestra de qué estás hecho. Estamos listos. Es hora de darlo todo. Ya tienes las ganas. Eres tú y 128 millones de mexicanos más. Así que hagamos ruido porque todo el mundo quiere escucharte. Trabajo, patrocinador oficial de los incondicionales.
Well, you saw the video. It's a long one. It's Kavak. It's a brand that is well known in Mexico because they are really changing the way to buy second market car. But what do you remember of this app? Do you have some views or some frames that you remember especially? Uh,
I remember the part when they've been screaming.
Okay, some other area. I think it's relevant that they are screaming. Some other frame that you can remember of this, probably the scene of the goal. Do you remember probably the scene of the goal? And the scene of the goal and the part where they are screaming, they have one thing in common, and they have a little of emotions. This advertising was not very successful in terms of the emotions it generates of the consumers. Really, I can bet after a little time, even when it has strong celebrities, very well known, we will forget very fast the advertising. And the only moment that most of the people remember a little is precisely this image when you see the goal. Curiously, remember with a little of disgust, probably because Mexico, we are never successful in the World Cup, and we see like something that never is successful for us. And probably because of that, we have also a little of confusion because the scene is very fast. But that is really the only moment. If you see here, 50 is the middle, and it's the only scene that has a little more of emotions. And that is curiously the only scene that the people used to remember of this. The screaming scene is of course about emotion, but he, the emotions generate that we focus our attention and we get this into our memory, and that is something quite important. This was an example of something not to do a lot of investment, long video, but really no emotions transmitted to the consumer. And here I have to say there are two different metrics about the emotions. In one way, it's the intensity of the emotion. As you saw in the last example, there was not really a lot of answer in terms of intensity of emotion. It's not a comedy, and normally advertisings are not a comedy, or not always should be a comedy. Therefore, the intensity, it can be strong, sometimes not so much. But the other thing, the amount of people that reflect those emotions, it's different. How many people makes a very little smile, but they are smiling, and that has a value, and how strong and how big is that smile. Eh, those are two different metrics that we have to consider, because maybe for some target, especially when you have different age targets in one communications, some target sees something as very positive and the other not so much. And for this, I want to show you a different video that I think you will like. You will enjoy much more this one. I will stop sharing to give you this video.
Yo creía que todo estaba bien con mi plan. Con redes sociales ilimitadas y un montón de gigas de alta velocidad. Y empecé a soñar y a sentir. Es como un sueño. Siento que nunca se me acaba. Todo estaba bien, pero llegaste tú. Si creías que todo estaba bien con tu plan, compáralo con los nuevos planes de Entel. Ahora con 100 gigas de alta velocidad. Sí, 100 y redes sociales ilimitadas. Entel.
Well, I have to say this ad was a very successful one in terms of generating emotions. Of course, this was the test of a competitor that is part of the metrics that we can follow. Now with Economy, we have the chance to test materials of our customers and materials of the competitors. And this was a competitor one, and it was a really good one. A lot of intensity in the emotions, but here I want to focus a little more in the percentage of people that was smiling. Really, in both of them, is it covers most of the graphic, but in the target that is 26 to 59, that is a wide target, practically all of the time after this band appears in the screen, they are smiling. And this other one, you can see in the same scene, the smiles come out in good part because the attitude of this guy is very positive. They are smiling. It's funny. Then this other guy is funny, but not as much people keeps that smile, because you can see how for one target, it's very relevant and is very accepted. Some scenes, some characters in this case for the band, and for the other is not so much. The attitude help, but it's not so much. Of course, when I want to really generate an impact in my metrics, eh, not only I have to think about the target, but I have to think how much people of the target get an emotion, and normally a positive emotion, because at the end is what we want for our brand. Eh, and this is a good example how the same stimulus can be very different among the targets. A lot of acceptance or not so much. And of course, if you have both of the things, if you have a strong intensity, you have a lot of acceptance, you have memorability, and you have really a position in the mind of the consumer. And not only in the mind, because once you get a position in the mind, the memory is very associated to the emotions. And when they remember you, they remember the that is something key when you are talking about having memorability in an advertising. And for that, I'm going to show you one more video that I think you will enjoy. One moment only, please.
Papá, ¿qué es la camiseta?
¿Otra?
Pero no tenemos esta. La necesito. Muy bien, José Luis. Siempre he sabido que es un gran elemento. ¿Te gustaría ser mi mejor amigo? Y que mamá te diga, eres el hombre más guapo y más fuerte. Además, cómo se ve tu abdomen. No necesitas hacer más ejercicio.
¿No estás exagerando?
No.
Puedo pagar con crédito.
Sería un golazo.
¡Un golazo!
¡Un golazo!
Cada logro que tienes es un gol de México. Coppel, mejora tu vida.
And well, I think you see again my screen with the graphics, and I will focus simply in several learnings that you start to have when you really follow the metrics and start to understand what is happening with your communication. As you can see, there is a structure in this advertising that is a narrative. This is, we are saying a story through the communication. It's going up, 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 because it's the moment. And exactly when you are in the top of the positive emotions, I know it's Spanish. For most of you, it's not clear, but he talks about, I can pay with credit. That is exactly the moment when the product is presented, because at the end, this retailer shop is selling through small payments every week. And it's exactly one of the learnings. You start to check how to build these emotions in the actions. You start to understand what kind of scenes, what kind of narrative will work for your audience. And in the exact moment that you have the top, you present the product. That is another important learning that you only can get when you start to understand really how to produce these emotions in your target. And this is the intensity. We have the two metrics. As you can see, these are 47, close to 50 the acts, and you see how it goes beyond 62, all the reactions and all the positive emotions and the engagement, because in the end you are getting both. You are getting a lot of people with big smiles, and that is finally what you want for your brand and what you want to remember a communication. And yes, basically why to measure systematically, because it is the way to improve. And I have to say, I have been in the marketing business for some years, and time ago, let's say 10 years ago, there was neuromarketing. there was the way to get emotions, but it was brutally expensive and it was slow. Had to go to a lab. The people sit there. They put helmets in the for the people to present the stimulus and read the same reactions that we can read now online through a monopoly platform. And that is something really strong, because that makes that I can get metrics in a systematic way, because it was really expensive in time and in budget. Now that is quite fast. And we start to have learnings in details, like the kind of scenes, the kind of expressions of the actors, and exactly where to optimize. And I will put an example, as I mentioned, that I really like this example. It's a great communication, but you will see now how you are starting to check the impact of metric and the impact of emotions and the impact of the scenes that I show, how there is an opportunity to improve. One moment again, I will share another video.
Yo creo que esta torta sabría mucho mejor con...
Sí, sabritas.
¿Será que Ryan me acaba de leer la mente y entiende español?
Ay, Chihuahua.
And well, this is the engagement. This is the happiness. As you can see, the advertising is really strong. Humor is something that that Sabritas, that is a Mexican brand, has taken as the flagship in the as the flagship to develop their communications. However, you start with sadness, with confusion, with sadness, and it's very easy. In the end, you start with a local celebrity that is very well known in the country, that has a very positive image, but she starts with a sad expression, making a question, reflecting itself. Eh, and that was part of the direction of the brand of the and the director in this advertising. It could be different and have the engagement since the very first moment. That is the attitude of Ryan Reynolds. Of course, is very well known celebrity. There was a big budget here, but he's, even when he's thinking, he's funny, and the reaction is immediate when you see that someone that is known, and of course the expression, the positive expression. Therefore, these kind of learnings you can do only when you measure consistently to you are generating, now that is affordable in terms of time and budget. And the only last point is about, I have been talking about positive emotion. Is that the only way to engage consumer? Not. It's not. We have afraid. The fear is something that, of course, engage consumers. Anger. In some brands, the anger is something that reflects. But normally, a positive emotion, a smile, is what you want for your brand. You don't want the people fearing your brand or remember anger when they think about your brand. You want something positive. However, this is an example. This is an advertising that at the moment that this capybara comes to scene, immediate happiness goes up, engagement goes up. But at the moment they start to explain the mechanic of the promotion, the sad comes up because nobody has a capybara as a pet. And however, the engagement keeps on the top. It's probably not the feeling we want for the brand, but it's a possibility and a different way to keep engaged the consumers with the advertising. And the end, there are emotions. We can use all the set of them to engage the consumers, but normally at the end we want happiness. And well, it's very brief, my presentation. I simply share some of the learnings uh, of this journey with the customer, and key factors to do a really good advertising: length of the video, the structure of the video. To tell us a story is something very important to really get positive emotions. Known characters, and I would say known characters, celebrities is a possibility, but it's very important that these characters, even if they are not known, can be sincere and can be very strong in the expressions, because that takes us to the other factor, those mirror neurons. If you transmit in your advertising someone sad, is what you are going to get from the consumers, someone sad. If you transmit in your advertising someone that is happy, you will get that happiness in the consumer. A emotion transmission, and that is important. The most element that you can introduce of your brand in a scene during the advertising, and I mean colors, I mean some shapes. It's not a logo all the time. It's simply elements. You will start to transmit the positive emotions to the consumers. Of course, some scene elements. You saw the food, you saw now the capybara, you saw when we talk about this customer, you saw beautiful telephones all the time. All of that helps to produce positive emotions. And of course, the episodes. You need to have probably some places uh, some scenes to produce sadness, to produce anger, to produce fear, to call the attention. But in the end, you want a positive solution of that situation because it's what you want for your brand. Some are the learnings, some kind of guide to develop a really great advertising with positive emotion for the consumer. And that is basically my part of the presentation. And please let me know any question that you have.
So there is a uh, two
What
questions.
happens when they don't have the expected reactions? Really, that you spend a lot of money and you don't get the result you want. In the end, you always want to build a brand. I used to say about the brands that you put in your shirt, and you have the brand in your shirt, and you are proud to use it. That is because you have a positive emotion from that. If you spend money without emotional reactions, you are really maybe selling, because you can have a very direct communication to sell something, but you are not building the future of your brand. It's a very good question, and that is the point. Sometimes in marketing we have a lot of pressure to sell, and we do communication very, very focused on selling. But if we forget the emotions, we are forgetting the long term impact. I don't know if there are some more questions on this, or some comment. I will be happy to answer.
Question from Kate about: did you see the examples of ads with smiles like 50% and more?
Well, there are some examples that are really comedies, and yes, you have you can see, but it's not easy.
Yeah. I guess now it's time to try our networking part. So I will move us to lobby. We are free to sit on different tables and to communicate one with each other. We'll see how it works. See you in lobby in the tables.
Perfect.
No, just a second. Let me. How? Something
And I
went
see
wrong.
your question. I will answer in the lobby, Roman.
Yeah, something went wrong. And I don't know whether we're gonna go to lobby or not. But
Well, I will
maybe
answer in the meantime the Roman question. Basically, Roman, I acceptance is it's my term. I have to say that you have two different metrics in the motions: the intensity, but not all the advertising is a comedy. Sometimes you have to do hard selling advertising. You have that challenge, but even in that is more in those kinds of advertising, you want a positive reaction. And there are some things that are funny or that well accepted for some people, and therefore they smile, and for other not. When you are talking about your advertising, you want that the most people, and that is what I call acceptance, because these people receives well the advertising, maybe not with so strong a smile. It's not a big smile, but they have a little smile in the expression. We can detect that with the platform, and that is exactly what I talk about. The amount of people
I
that
found,
receive
I
positive
found how to do it,
communication.
so we'll see on the tables right now.